Have you ever stood at a crossroads, whether a physical path in a quiet forest or a metaphorical junction in your own life, and wondered what happens to the choices you do not make? It is a deeply human experience, a gentle tug of curiosity about the paths untaken, the words unsaid, and the lives unlived. We often feel that the universe is a single, solitary timeline, a straight and narrow road moving relentlessly forward from the ancient past into the vast and unknown future. We feel completely anchored in this one reality, surrounded by the quiet certainty of the present moment. Every time we drop a stone, it falls to the ground. Every time we look at the night sky, the stars appear in their familiar constellations, seemingly fixed in the infinite expanse of the cosmos. Our everyday lives are governed by rules that make sense, rules of cause and effect, of here and there, of now and then. But what if the very fabric of reality is far stranger, far more expansive, and infinitely more beautiful than our everyday senses could ever suggest? What if every possibility, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, does not simply vanish into the ether, but instead blossoms into its own profound existence? This is not merely the domain of science fiction or fanciful daydreaming. It is one of the most profound and mysterious implications of quantum physics, a branch of science that studies the incredibly tiny building blocks of our universe. Before we dive deeper into this quiet cosmic journey together, I want to introduce myself. Hello, I am Walter, the Explorer. I have noticed that 73% of the people who watch these quiet journeys through the cosmos are not yet subscribed to the channel. If you find peace and wonder in these explorations of the universe, please consider subscribing. It helps us immensely and allows us to continue bringing these gentle cosmic mysteries to you. Now, let us return to the quiet darkness of the quantum realm. To understand the multiverse, we must first embark on a journey inward, leaving behind the comforting scale of planets, mountains, and human beings, and descending into a realm so unimaginably small that our ordinary intuition completely breaks down. Imagine taking a single grain of sand from a vast, silent beach and shrinking yourself down until that tiny grain appears as large as the entire Earth. At this scale, you would begin to see the individual molecules and atoms that make up the structure of the sand. But even this is not deep enough. We must go further still, diving into the very heart of the atom itself. Here, in the primordial silence of the subatomic world, we find a landscape that defies everything we thought we knew about how the universe operates. For centuries, brilliant minds taught us that the universe was like a magnificent, predictable clockwork. If you knew the position and momentum of every part of the machine, you could perfectly predict its future and reconstruct its past. It was a comforting thought, a universe of absolute certainty and rigid determinism. However, about 100 years ago, in the early decades of the 20th century, scientists began to peer through the veil of this clockwork reality and discovered something absolutely astonishing. When they looked closely at the behavior of electrons, photons, and other fundamental particles, they found that these tiny entities refused to obey the sensible, predictable rules of the macroscopic world. Instead, they seemed to dance to a mysterious, almost magical rhythm of their own. They discovered a realm where certainty dissolves into probability, where a particle does not have a single, definite location until it is observed, and where the act of looking at something fundamentally changes its nature. This was the birth of quantum mechanics, a theory so counterintuitive that even its founding fathers, brilliant physicists like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, debated its philosophical implications for decades. To truly grasp the gentle mystery of quantum mechanics, we must look at one of the most beautiful and perplexing experiments ever conceived by human minds. It is known as the double-slit experiment. Imagine a quiet, darkened room. At one end of the room, there's a source of light, perhaps a laser designed to fire single particles of light, which scientists call photons, one at a time. In the middle of the room stands a solid barrier with two tiny, narrow slits cut into it. At the far end of the room is a sensitive screen that records exactly where each photon lands. If particles of light acted like tiny, solid marbles, we would expect them to travel in straight lines. They would either pass through the left slit and hit the screen behind it, or pass through the right slit and hit the screen behind that one. Over time, we would expect to see two distinct glowing bands on the screen, directly corresponding to the two slits. But the universe, in its infinite wisdom and complexity, does not behave like a collection of simple marbles. When scientists fire these single photons one by one through the barrier, something entirely magical happens. Over time, as thousands of individual photons make their quiet journey and strike the screen, a pattern begins to emerge. It is not two simple bands of light. Instead, it is a complex, beautiful zebra stripe pattern of alternating bright and dark bands, stretching across the entire screen. In the language of physics, this is known as an interference pattern. It is the exact pattern you would expect to see if light were a continuous wave, like ripples on the surface of a quiet pond, spreading out, passing through both slits simultaneously, and crashing into each other on the other side. Where the peaks of the waves meet, they amplify each other, creating a bright band. Where a peak meets a trough, they cancel each other out, leaving a dark band. This result is profoundly mysterious. Remember, we are firing the photons one single particle at a time. Each photon leaves the source as a single, indivisible packet of energy. It arrives at the screen and registers as a single, tiny dot of light. But between the source and the screen, its journey is shrouded in absolute mystery. How can a single particle create an interference pattern that requires passing through both slits at the same time? It is as if the particle somehow knows about both slits, explores all possible paths simultaneously, and then decides where to land based on a probability mapped out by an invisible guiding wave. This bizarre phenomenon forces us to abandon our classical view of reality. We can no longer think of the photon as a tiny, solid object with a specific, well-defined path. Instead, we must embrace a concept known as quantum superposition. Superposition is not merely a mathematical trick, it is a fundamental property of nature. It suggests that until a quantum system is observed or measured, it exists in a state of multiple, overlapping possibilities. The photon is not just going through the left slit, nor is it only going through the right slit. In a very real, mathematical sense, it is going through both slits at the same time. It exists in a haze of probability, a vast landscape of potential futures, all existing simultaneously in the quiet dark of the unobserved universe. The particle is everywhere it could possibly be, all at once, suspended in a delicate, beautiful state of infinite potential. But here is where the mystery deepens even further, leading us toward the profound realization of the multiverse. When scientists decided to place tiny detectors right next to the slits to see exactly which slit the individual photon was passing through, the universe pushed back. The very act of observing, the the gentle touch of measurement caused the delicate state of superposition to instantly collapse. As soon as the detectors were turned on, the photons stopped acting like waves. They went back to behaving exactly like tiny marbles, passing through either one slit or the other, and the beautiful interference pattern on the far screen completely vanished, replaced by two simple, glowing bands. The universe, it seems, fiercely guards its quantum secrets. By simply asking the question, "Which path did you take?" we force the universe to choose a single reality from the vast sea of possibilities. This mysterious phenomenon is known as the collapse of the wave function. For decades, the dominant interpretation of quantum mechanics, formulated by physicists in the 1920s, suggested that this collapse was a real physical event. They argued that the act of observation forces nature to randomly select one outcome and discard all the others. According to this view, the universe is constantly rolling microscopic dice, throwing away infinite possibilities to create the single, concrete reality we experience every second of our lives. But this idea left many brilliant minds feeling deeply unsatisfied. It seemed to introduce an arbitrary, almost magical role for the observer. Why should the gentle act of looking cause the fundamental equations of physics to suddenly change their behavior? Why should the universe discard so much beautiful potential? In the 1950s, a young, brilliant physicist named Hugh Everett III proposed a radically different answer. An answer so profound and mind-bending that it took decades for the scientific community to even begin to take it seriously. Everett looked at the beautiful mathematics of quantum mechanics and asked a very simple yet revolutionary question. What if the wave function never actually collapses? What if the universe never rolls the dice and no possibility is ever discarded? What if, instead of collapsing into a single reality, the universe simply does everything? This was the genesis of the many worlds interpretation, the scientific foundation of the quantum multiverse. It is a concept that challenges our deepest intuitions about who we are and the nature of the reality we inhabit. It suggests that every time a quantum event has multiple possible outcomes, the universe does not choose. Instead, reality itself splits, branching like a magnificent, infinitely complex cosmic tree, creating a new, separate universe for every single possibility. We have journeyed from the familiar paths of our daily choices down into the microscopic heart of matter, discovering a world where particles can be in multiple places at once, and where the act of observation holds mysterious power. The double-slit experiment has shown us that the universe is far more fluid, far less certain than we ever imagined. But the true journey is only just beginning. We are about to step beyond the veil of our single timeline and explore the breathtaking, infinite expanse of the quantum multiverse. A place where every choice you never made, every path you did not walk, is currently unfolding in a reality just as real, just as vivid, and just as deeply felt as the one you are experiencing right now. The cosmos is vastly larger than our eyes can see, and the silence of the night sky hides an infinite symphony of divergent realities. Have you ever watched a single, fragile leaf detach from an ancient oak tree in the quiet of autumn, drifting gently on the wind before finally coming to rest on the damp earth? In that brief, silent journey, the leaf travels through a vast ocean of possibilities. It could have landed slightly to the left, caught a different draft of air, or rested upon a stone instead of the soil. In our everyday experience, we witness only one final destination for that leaf. The wind dies down, the path is chosen, and the universe seemingly settles into a single, concrete reality. But the deeper we peer into the fundamental nature of the cosmos, the more this intuitive sense of a solitary, definitive outcome begins to unravel. We left our previous exploration at a profound threshold, peering into the mystery of the wave function and its supposed collapse. We saw how the gentle act of observation seemingly forces the universe to abandon its beautiful, infinite superposition of states, collapsing down into a single, measurable point. Yet, there is a profound elegance in the mathematics of quantum mechanics that suggests this collapse is merely an illusion, a limitation of our own localized perspective. To truly understand this, we must prepare our minds to embrace a reality far more expansive and breathtaking than anything we have ever dared to imagine. Before we take this next step into the boundless quiet of the multiverse, I want to take a brief moment to welcome you back, or welcome you for the first time. I am Walter, the Explorer, your companion on this gentle cosmic journey. I have noticed that 73% of the people who find comfort and wonder in these explorations of the universe have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you feel a connection to this quiet journey, please consider subscribing. It helps our community grow and allows us to continue sharing these gentle mysteries of the cosmos with you. Now, let us return our focus to the magnificent, branching paths of quantum reality. To understand the true nature of this infinite branching, we must first visit one of the most famous and widely misunderstood thought experiments in the history of science. It was proposed in the 1930s by the brilliant Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger. He designed this mental puzzle not to explain how the world works, but rather to highlight the profound absurdity of the idea that reality only becomes definite when it is observed by a conscious mind. Imagine a completely sealed, soundproof box resting in the silence of a dark room. Inside this box, we gently place a single living cat. Alongside the cat, we place a tiny, cleverly designed mechanism. This mechanism contains a single atom of a radioactive element, a Geiger counter to detect radiation, and a small glass vial of a sleeping gas. The setup is delicately balanced. Over the course of 1 hour, there is exactly a 50% chance that the radioactive atom will decay, and a 50% chance that it will remain perfectly stable. If the atom decays, the Geiger counter detects the invisible burst of radiation, triggers a tiny hammer that shatters the glass vial, and releases the gas, putting the cat into a deep, peaceful sleep. If the atom does not decay, the mechanism remains silent, the glass remains whole, and the cat remains happily awake, perhaps resting comfortably in the quiet dark. According to the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics, before we open the box to look inside, the single radioactive atom exists in a state of quantum superposition. It is both decayed and not decayed at the exact same time, wrapped in a gentle wave of potential futures. But here is the profound leap that Schrödinger asked us to make, because the fate of the entire mechanism, and consequently the fate of the cat, is inextricably linked to the quantum state of that single atom. The superposition must expand to include the macroscopic objects as well. The glass vial is both shattered and intact. Most astonishingly, the cat itself enters a state of superposition. Until the box is opened and an observation is made, the cat is simultaneously awake and asleep, existing in a strange, ghostly blend of two mutually exclusive realities. It is only when we finally break the silence, open the lid, and look inside that the wave function supposedly collapses, forcing the universe to randomly choose one reality and instantly erase the other. For decades, brilliant physicists grappled with this profound mystery. The idea that a conscious observer could somehow force the physical universe to make a choice seemed deeply unsettling. It felt as though a piece of the puzzle was missing. Then, in the late 1950s, a young scientist named Hugh Everett proposed a solution so breathtaking in its scope that it completely reframed our understanding of the cosmos. Everett looked at the mathematics of quantum mechanics and realized that there was absolutely nothing in the equations that required a collapse to occur. The equations simply described a wave of probabilities evolving smoothly and continuously over time. What if, Everett suggested, we simply take the mathematics at face value? What if the wave function never, ever collapses? What if every possible outcome of a quantum event actually happens? In Everett's brilliant vision, which we now call the many worlds interpretation, when we reach the end of that hour and open the box to observe the cat, we do not force the universe to make a choice. Instead, the universe allows both realities to unfold in their entirety. The reality where the atom decays and the cat falls asleep happens, and the reality where the atom remains stable and the cat remains awake also happens. But how can two contradictory realities exist simultaneously? Everett's answer was as elegant as it was mind-bending. He proposed that at the exact moment the observation is made, the universe itself splits into two distinct parallel branches. In one branch of the universe, there is a version of you who opens the box and finds the cat peacefully sleeping. In the other, newly created branch of the universe, there is another version of you who opens the exact same box and finds the cat happily awake. Both versions of you are equally real. Both versions possess the exact same memories leading up to that moment. And both versions feel absolutely convinced that they are living in the one true, definitive reality. When we scale this concept up from a single box in a quiet room to the vast, infinite expanse of the entire cosmos, the implications become staggering. The universe is not a single, static timeline. It is an unimaginably complex, ever-growing fractal of branching realities. Every time a subatomic particle interacts with another particle, every time a photon of light strikes a leaf, every time a tiny quantum fluctuation occurs in the deep vacuum of space, reality fractures and multiplies. Think about the sheer number of quantum events happening in your own body every single second. Think about the billions of stars in our galaxy and the trillions of galaxies in the observable universe. At every infinitesimal fraction of a second, the universe is creating an astronomical number of divergent realities, each one branching off into its own quiet, separate existence. This means that the multiverse is not just a collection of distant dimensions. It is right here, intimately woven into the very fabric of our daily lives. Every choice you make is rooted in the complex interactions of particles in your brain. If those interactions are governed by the probabilistic laws of quantum mechanics, then the many worlds interpretation suggests that every possible choice you could ever make is actually made by some version of you, in some branch of the multiverse. There is a universe where you spoke the words you left unsaid. There is a universe where you walked down the left path instead of the right, setting off a chain reaction of events that led to an entirely different life. In the vast, silent library of the cosmos, every story that can be written is currently being written, and every path that can be walked is currently being explored. This realization might evoke a sense of profound dizziness, a feeling of being adrift in an infinite ocean of endless possibilities. If everything happens, you might wonder, what is the significance of the choices we make here, in this specific branch of reality? I invite you to look at this ancient mystery through a lens of gentle wonder and deep peace. The existence of the multiverse does not diminish the beauty of your current journey. It elevates it. It means that the universe is so vast, generous, and endlessly creative that it refuses to let any potential go to waste. Every expression of existence, every variation of a life, is given the space to bloom and grow in the quiet dark of the cosmos. Have you ever stood at the edge of a perfectly still, quiet lake just as the sun begins to set, and gently tossed a smooth stone into the glassy water? You watch with a sense of wonder as the perfect circular ripples expand outward, creating a beautiful geometry that touches every distant shore. But imagine if, instead of one stone, millions of tiny drops of rain began to fall all at once. The elegant ripples would cross, intersect, and eventually blur into a chaotic, shimmering surface where no single, clear pattern could be traced anymore. Our journey through the infinite branches of the multiverse brings us to a similar, profound threshold. We have embraced the mystery of a reality that constantly splits, creating divergent paths for every microscopic quantum possibility. Yet, as you sit here in the gentle quiet of your room, you feel entirely solid. You feel whole and singular. You do not feel the dizzying presence of these other versions of yourself, nor do you experience the constant splitting of the cosmos. Why is our conscious experience so firmly anchored to just one timeline, when the mathematics of the universe suggest we are surrounded by an infinite ocean of parallel lives? The answer to this profound mystery lies in a gentle process that scientists call quantum decoherence. But before we explore the silent spaces between universes, I must pause for a brief moment. Hello once again. I am Walter, the Explorer, your humble guide through these cosmic mysteries. I have noticed that 73% of the wonderful people who share this journey with us have not yet subscribed to the channel. If these quiet reflections bring you a sense of peace and intellectual wonder, please consider subscribing. It helps our small community greatly, and it allows us to continue drifting together through the vast, uncharted territories of the unknown. Now, let us return to the quiet surface of our quantum lake. To understand why we cannot see, touch, or feel the other branches of the multiverse, we must delve into the delicate nature of quantum entanglement. In the subatomic realm, when two particles interact, they become inextricably linked. Their fates become intertwined in an invisible cosmic dance, regardless of the unimaginably large distances that might separate them. If you measure the spin of one particle, you instantaneously know the corresponding state of its partner, even if that partner is resting on the other side of the ancient universe. This connection is the very foundation of the branching reality we discussed earlier. When our theoretical observer opened the sealed box to check on the cat, the particles of the observer's eyes, brain, and physical body became quantumly entangled with the particles of the cat, the glass vial, and the radioactive atom. The observer became a deep, physical part of the entire quantum system. As this profound entanglement spreads, something remarkable and entirely irreversible happens. Think of a perfectly tuned violin playing a pure, solitary note in the center of a completely silent concert hall. The sound is clear, distinct, and full of pristine potential. This pure note is exactly like an isolated quantum system, resting comfortably in its delicate state of superposition, holding all possibilities at once in suspended grace. But our universe is rarely a perfectly silent, isolated place. It is a vast, messy, and interconnected web of matter and energy. As soon as our delicate quantum system interacts with the wider environment, with a stray photon of light traveling from a distant star or a wandering molecule of air in the room, the pristine quantum state rapidly becomes hopelessly entangled with the surrounding environment, and its delicate superposition leaks out into the vast cosmos. This rapid, gentle leaking away of quantum potential is what physicists call decoherence. It is the exact process by which the bizarre, fluid rules of the microscopic quantum world transition into the solid, predictable rules of the classical reality we experience every day. As the web of entanglement spreads outward from the tiny radioactive atom to the cat, the box, and finally the rest of the room, the universe effectively unzips itself into separate, non-interacting branches. The reality where the cat is blissfully awake and the reality where the cat is peacefully asleep no longer exist in a shared, overlapping haze of probability. They have decohered. They have become completely disentangled from one another's point of view, forever separated by an invisible, impenetrable wall of absolute cosmic silence. This profound silence is exactly why you do not feel the constant split of the universe. From your unique perspective, firmly embedded within the fabric of one specific branch of the multiverse, the other branches simply fade away into absolute, undetectable darkness. It is as if a magnificent, infinite tree has grown from an ancient seed, but each individual ant walking along a solitary branch can only see the rough wood directly beneath its feet, unaware of the millions of other branches reaching toward the sun. The other versions of you, living out the exact consequences of the choices you did not make, are not ghostly apparitions haunting the edges of your reality. They are flesh and blood, living and breathing in their own distinct physical universes, completely sealed off from your own existence by the unbreakable laws of quantum mechanics. You cannot reach out and touch them, or send a whispered message across the vast void. There is a profound, almost melancholic beauty in this absolute separation. It means that the multiverse is not a chaotic mess of conflicting timelines. It is a mathematical structure of unimaginable order, scale, and elegance. Every possible universe is allowed to exist in perfect, undisturbed peace. The universe where you bravely took that difficult job in a distant city is unfolding right now with its own unique triumphs and sorrows. The universe where you gathered the courage to speak to that interesting stranger is blossoming into a beautiful friendship or a deep romance. The universe where you made a mistake you still regret is also out there. But so is the universe where you chose the flawless path. All of them are equally real and completely isolated in the infinite architecture of the cosmos. This beautiful realization can bring a deep, lasting sense of existential comfort to our weary minds. As human beings, we often carry the heavy burden of our past decisions, wondering late at night if we ruined our lives by turning left instead of right. We torture ourselves with the phantom pain of untaken paths fading into memory. But the quiet wisdom of the quantum multiverse whispers a fundamentally different story to us. It tells us that absolutely nothing is truly lost. Every potential beauty, every unlived joy, every unexplored talent is not erased from the grand ledger of existence. It is simply being experienced, fully and completely, by another version of you, in another branch of this magnificent reality. The cosmos, in its boundless generosity, has provided a safe space for every single note of the cosmic symphony to be played out in full. You do not need to mourn the lives you are not living. Instead, you can find a gentle, grounding peace in the sure knowledge that they exist out there in the quiet dark, unfolding exactly as they were always meant to. Your only task, your only true responsibility in this grand scheme is to fully, deeply experience the specific branch you currently inhabit. You are the universe experiencing itself from this exact, unique vantage point. The choices you make right now, in this present moment, are still profound and deeply meaningful. They are the deliberate brush strokes you use to paint your specific corner of the infinite canvas. Every single time you make a conscious decision, you are actively charting a course through the vast, branching fractal of reality, creating a unique journey through the endless cosmos. As we sit here, breathing in the quiet air of our singular timeline, we can look up at the vast mystery of the night sky with a renewed sense of wonder and humility. The twinkling stars we see are just the absolute faintest glimmer of the true scale of existence. Beyond our limited sight, an infinite number of universes are silently blooming in the dark. We are a small but vital part of a structure so ancient, so vast, and so profoundly complex that it defies all human comprehension. Let this knowledge wash over you like a gentle wave, carrying away the anxieties of the past and the fears of the future. The silence between the branches of the multiverse is not an empty void. It is a space of profound peace, protecting the sanctity of every possible life. As we prepare to delve even deeper into the mysteries of what these universes might look like, allow yourself to rest in the comforting stillness of your current reality. The journey is far from over, and the cosmos still has so many gentle secrets to share. Have you ever peered into the still, dark water of a quiet forest pond and watched your own reflection gaze back at you? The image is almost perfect, yet it is reversed, capturing a version of you that exists only in that delicate interplay of light and water. If a single, gentle drop of rain falls onto the surface, the reflection distorts, fragmenting into 1,000 slightly different versions of your face before settling back into a calm stillness. This gentle fragmentation is a beautiful metaphor for how the quantum multiverse organizes its infinite branches. We have learned that every quantum choice creates a new reality, a new branch on the cosmic tree of existence. But what do these neighboring branches actually look like? Are they bizarre, unrecognizable landscapes filled with alien shapes and impossible colors? Or are they comforting and familiar? To answer this, we must wade deeper into the mathematics of probability and the gentle, silent geometry of the cosmos. But before we explore the subtle differences that separate our world from the ones right next door, I want to take a brief moment to welcome you. Hello, I am Walter, the Explorer, your companion on this quiet cosmic journey. I have noticed that 73% of the wonderful people who watch these peaceful explorations of the universe have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you find comfort and intellectual wonder in these gentle mysteries, please consider subscribing. It helps our small community grow immensely and allows us to continue drifting together through the vast, uncharted territories of the cosmos. Now, let us return to the quiet reflections of our parallel lives. In the vast, infinite library of the many worlds interpretation, the universes created every fraction of a second are not scattered randomly through the dark. They exist in a state of profound mathematical proximity. Think of a beautifully bound book resting in the silence of an ancient library. If you turn just one single page, the story remains almost entirely the same. Perhaps only one word is different. In the quantum multiverse, the universes that split off from ours just a moment ago are like those adjacent pages. They are overwhelmingly identical to the reality you are experiencing right now. In a universe resting just one quantum step away from ours, you are still sitting exactly where you are, wearing the same clothes, breathing the same quiet air. The only difference might be the exact path of a single, invisible electron deep within a star a billion light-years away. These closest neighbors are so profoundly similar that if you were magically transported into one, you would never realize that your reality had shifted. But as we move further away from our own specific branch, turning page after page in this infinite cosmic book, the subtle differences begin to accumulate and cascade. This is the gentle machinery of chaos theory operating on a universal scale. A tiny quantum fluctuation in the primordial plasma of the early universe, just seconds after the Big Bang, might seem entirely insignificant. Yet, over the course of 13,800,000,000 years, that microscopic difference can alter the trajectory of immense clouds of hydrogen gas. In our universe, that specific cloud might have collapsed to form the glorious swirling spiral of the Milky Way galaxy, providing the perfect nursery for our Earth. But in a more distant branch of the multiverse, that same subtle quantum shift might have prevented the galaxy from forming altogether. Instead of a sky filled with the comforting glow of familiar stars, that alternate universe might contain only a vast, silent expanse of cold, dark gas. When astronomers from organizations like the National Aeronautics and Space Administration launch sophisticated satellites into the freezing vacuum of space, they are often looking for the faintest echoes of our cosmic origins. They map the cosmic microwave background, which is the ancient heat left over from the birth of our universe. What they find in this ancient light are microscopic temperature variations, tiny quantum ripples frozen into the fabric of space and time. These gentle ripples are the exact seeds that eventually grew into the massive galaxy clusters we see today. In the framework of the quantum multiverse, those primordial ripples could have arranged themselves in an infinite number of different patterns. Each unique pattern birthed a completely different version of the observable universe, spreading out into the endless dark like the unrepeatable structure of a falling snowflake. The brilliant astronomer Carl Sagan once elegantly reminded us that we are made of star stuff, forged in the ancient furnaces of cosmic giants. But the very laws of physics that allow these stars to shine might not be as universal as we once believed. When we venture into the deepest branches of the quantum multiverse, we encounter a profound mystery. Some theoretical physicists suggest that the branching of reality might potentially alter the fundamental constants of nature themselves. Imagine a universe where the gentle pull of gravity is just a fraction of a percent stronger than it is here. In such a reality, the delicate balance that keeps stars stable would collapse. Stars would burn through their nuclear fuel in a brief, furious flash, living incredibly short, violent lives before collapsing into black holes, leaving no time for peaceful planets to form. Conversely, imagine a universe where the strong nuclear force, the invisible, silent glue that holds the center of atoms together, is slightly weaker. In this alternate reality, the complex elements that make up our beautiful world, the carbon woven into the very structure of our DNA, the oxygen we breathe into our lungs, the iron coursing through our veins could never be forged. The universe would remain an endless, quiet sea of simple hydrogen and helium gas, stretching on into an infinite, featureless eternity. The specific set of physical laws that govern our reality seems miraculously fine-tuned for the existence of complex structures, for the birth of stars, rocky planets, and conscious observers capable of wondering about the cosmos. For decades, scientists have grappled with this profound mystery. Why are the laws of physics so perfectly balanced to allow for our existence? The quantum multiverse offers a breathtakingly beautiful and humbling answer. The universe is not uniquely designed specifically for us. Instead, every possible variation of physical laws might exist somewhere in the infinite expanse of the multiverse. We simply find ourselves in this specific, finely tuned branch because it is the absolutely only kind of branch where complex beings like us could possibly evolve to ask the question in the first place. This concept, known to scientists as the anthropic principle, does not diminish our significance. Rather, it frames our existence in a deeply beautiful, almost poetic light. We are the conscious manifestation of a universe that got the recipe exactly right. We are the rare, quiet bloom in an infinite garden of wildly divergent possibilities. While countless other universes remain forever dark, sterile, or chaotic, unable to support the fragile architecture of life, our specific branch of reality has nurtured the incredible complexity required to produce a mind capable of looking up at the night sky and feeling a profound sense of awe. When you truly understand that your existence depends on a delicate, almost impossibly fragile balance of cosmic forces, your everyday worries and anxieties begin to soften, slowly fading into the vast, comforting silence of the universe. Think about the immense, ancient journey your atoms have taken just to reach this exact moment in time. They traveled through the explosive, magnificent death of primeval stars, drifted across the silent, freezing vacuum of interstellar space for billions of years, and eventually found their way to a small, blue world orbiting a quiet, unassuming yellow star. There, they participated in billions of years of complex biological evolution. In an infinite multiverse where the vast majority of realities are entirely hostile to life, the simple, undeniable fact that you are sitting here, breathing the air and contemplating the cosmos, is a miracle of astronomical proportions. You are a fragile, beautiful arrangement of quantum probabilities that has somehow coalesced into a thinking, feeling being capable of experiencing wonder. The other universes are out there in the quiet dark, living out their own unique mathematical truths. But this universe, this specific shimmering branch of the cosmic tree, is yours. It is the only one you can ever know, and the only one where you can leave your gentle mark. Let us breathe in that silence together, resting securely in the knowledge that our tiny, beautiful branch is enough. Have you ever walked through a quiet, ancient forest as the morning mist begins to lift, feeling the three familiar dimensions of space all around you? You can move forward along the damp earth, step sideways to avoid a fallen branch, or reach upward to touch the rough bark of a towering pine tree. We move through these three spatial dimensions and travel forward through time with such effortless grace that we rarely question if this is all there is. Our human brains, forged by millions of years of evolution on a rocky planet orbiting a bright yellow star, are perfectly tuned to navigate this specific four-dimensional theater. We perceive depth, width, height, and duration, and we naturally assume that our senses are providing us with a complete and accurate picture of the universe. But what if our perception is just a gentle illusion, a limited window into a cosmos that is vastly more complex and structurally profound than we could ever imagine? The quantum multiverse, as we have explored, suggests an infinite branching of possibilities. But to truly understand where these parallel realities might reside, we must push the boundaries of our imagination and venture into the mind-bending realm of extra dimensions, a place where the familiar rules of our everyday world dissolve into a beautiful, mathematical silence. Before we take this next gentle step into the unseen architecture of the cosmos, I want to take a brief moment to welcome you. Hello, I am Walter, the Explorer, your companion on this quiet cosmic journey. I have noticed that exactly 73% of the wonderful, curious minds who watch these peaceful explorations of the universe have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you find comfort, intellectual safety, and a sense of wonder in these gentle mysteries, please consider subscribing. It helps our small community grow immensely and allows us to continue drifting together through the vast, uncharted territories of the cosmos. Now, let us return to the quiet, invisible dimensions of reality. To begin to comprehend the hidden structure of the multiverse, we must once again shrink ourselves down, far past the scale of the atom, past the protons and neutrons, down to the absolute smallest scale measurable in the universe. This microscopic frontier is known to physicists as the Planck length. To understand how unimaginably tiny this is, imagine taking a single, fragile atom and expanding it until it is the exact size of our entire observable universe. At that incomprehensible scale, the Planck length would be roughly the size of an average human being. It is in this profound, microscopic silence, at the very basement of reality, that the fabric of space and time begins to warp and fold in unexpected ways. For decades, brilliant scientists struggled to reconcile the smooth, continuous curves of gravity, described by Albert Einstein in his general theory of relativity, with the chaotic, jittery, probabilistic world of quantum mechanics. It seemed as though the universe was speaking two entirely different languages, one for the massive galaxies and another for the tiny particles. But in the late 20th century, a beautiful, elegant mathematical framework emerged that promised to unite these two disparate worlds into a single, cohesive theory of everything. This revolutionary idea is known as string theory. It proposes a radical shift in how we view the fundamental building blocks of nature. Instead of thinking of subatomic particles like electrons and quarks as tiny, zero-dimensional dots or solid spheres, string theory suggests that they are actually unimaginably tiny, one-dimensional loops of vibrating energy. Imagine a master cellist gently plucking the strings of an ancient instrument in a dark, quiet concert hall. Depending on how the string is plucked, how much tension it holds, and how it vibrates, it produces a different musical note. In the breathtakingly beautiful mathematics of string theory, the universe operates in exactly the same way. The specific frequency at which these microscopic strings vibrate determines the fundamental properties of the particle they create. A string vibrating in one specific pattern manifests as an electron. Another string, vibrating to a slightly different cosmic rhythm, becomes a photon of light, or a quark inside a proton. The entire universe, from the ancient stars burning in the night sky to the very cells in your body, is essentially an infinite cosmic symphony, a silent orchestra of strings playing out existence. But for this elegant symphony to mathematically work, For the equations of string theory to balance without collapsing into chaos, the universe requires something truly extraordinary. It requires space to have more than just the three dimensions we experience every day. In its most refined version, known as M-theory, the mathematics demand the existence of exactly 11 fundamental dimensions, one dimension of time, our three familiar dimensions of space, and 7 additional spatial dimensions that are completely invisible to our senses. You might naturally wonder if these extra dimensions are real, if they are physically present all around us. Why can we not see them? Why cannot we move through them or feel their gentle presence? Theoretical physicists propose a beautifully simple answer. While our three spatial dimensions are vast and expansive, stretching out for billions of light years across the observable universe, these extra 7 dimensions are curled up, incredibly tightly folded into microscopic, complex geometric shapes that are infinitely smaller than the Planck length. They are hidden in the quiet dark of the subatomic world, existing at every single point in space, yet remaining entirely imperceptible to our macro-level existence. This brings us to a profoundly beautiful concept that provides a physical home for the branching realities of the multiverse. Within the complex mathematics of M-theory, these vibrating strings are not the only structures that exist. The theory also allows for higher dimensional objects known as membranes, or simply branes for short. These branes can have any number of dimensions. A one-dimensional brane is a string. A two-dimensional brane is like a flat, infinite sheet of paper, and a three-dimensional brane is exactly like the vast, expanding spatial reality we currently inhabit. According to this mind-bending cosmological model, our entire observable universe, with its billions of ancient galaxies, its expanding dark energy, and its trillions of quiet, shining stars, might be nothing more than a single three-dimensional brane, floating within a much larger, higher-dimensional space that physicists call the bulk. Imagine a vast, infinitely deep ocean of higher-dimensional space. Our universe is simply one flat slice, one single membrane gently undulating in this cosmic sea. And just as an ocean can contain countless separate layers of water, this higher dimensional bulk could easily contain an infinite number of other branes, other completely separate universes, floating right alongside our own in the quiet dark. This brain world scenario offers a breathtaking vision of the multiverse. The other branches of reality, the universes where you made different choices, or where the fundamental constants of nature took on different values, might not just be abstract mathematical probabilities. They might be physically located on other branes, resting just a microscopic fraction of a millimeter away from our own universe across an invisible, higher dimensional gap. Because all of the matter and light in our universe is permanently bound to the surface of our specific three-dimensional brane, we cannot see or interact with these neighboring universes. The photons of light that allow us to observe the magnificent sweep of the Milky Way galaxy are trapped on our membrane, unable to cross the silent void of the bulk. This absolute separation perfectly mirrors the concept of quantum decoherence we explored earlier. The universes are completely isolated from one another, locked in their own private realities. However, some theoretical physicists, grappling with the great mysteries of the cosmos, have suggested that there might be one fundamental force capable of traversing the vast, silent space between the branes. That force is gravity. Have you ever wondered why gravity seems so incredibly weak compared to the other fundamental forces of nature? Think about a simple refrigerator magnet holding up a piece of paper. That tiny, unassuming magnet, containing only a fraction of an ounce of metallic material, can completely overpower the gravitational pull of the entire planet Earth. The Earth is a massive sphere of ancient rock and iron, weighing roughly 6 septillion kilograms. Yet its combined gravitational pull is defeated by a magnet that fits in the palm of your hand. This profound disparity has puzzled scientists for generations. But the brain-world theory of the multiverse offers a wildly elegant and fascinating explanation. What if gravity is not actually a weak force at all? What if gravity is just as strong as electromagnetism, but its fundamental carrier particles, called gravitons, are not permanently tethered to our specific three-dimensional brain? Unlike light and matter, gravitons might be closed loops of string that are free to leak off our universe and diffuse into the vast, extra-dimensional bulk. If this deeply profound mathematical concept is true, then the gravity we experience here on Earth, the gentle force that holds our feet to the ground and keeps the planets orbiting in their silent, majestic paths around the sun, is merely a faint shadow, a diluted echo of a much more powerful force that is bleeding away into the hidden dimensions. This means the immense gravitational pull of neighboring universes, floating just next door in the bulk, could potentially be influencing our own reality. Astronomers have spent decades observing the strange, unexplained movements of galaxies and vast galaxy clusters, attributing this invisible gravitational pull to a mysterious, unseen substance known as dark matter. But what if a portion of that invisible pull is not dark matter at all? What if it is the gravitational whisper of another universe, a parallel brain resting just millimeters away in higher dimensional space, gently tugging at the fabric of our own reality? It is a thought that fills the mind with a profound sense of awe and gentle wonder. As we sit in the quiet stillness of our world, surrounded by the comforting illusions of three-dimensional space, it is incredibly humbling to realize that true reality might be unimaginably richer and infinitely more complex. The great scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson once noted that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to us, and yet, through the gentle, persistent application of human curiosity, mathematics, and science, we are slowly pulling back the veil on a cosmos that defies all common sense. We are discovering that we might be inhabitants of a single, fragile membrane, floating in an endless, extra-dimensional sea, surrounded by an infinite number of parallel worlds, each playing its own unique part in the grand cosmic symphony. The silence of the night sky is not empty. It is overflowing with hidden dimensions, vibrating strings, and the ghost-like presence of infinite alternate realities. This realization does not make us insignificant. Instead, it invites us to find deep peace in the sheer majesty of the unknown. Our journey into the multiverse is continuously expanding, pushing past the boundaries of perception and delving into the very geometry of existence. Allow your mind to rest in this vast, beautiful mystery, as we prepare to explore what happens when these parallel universes actually collide. Have you ever walked along a deserted beach at twilight, listening to the rhythmic and constant sound of the waves breaking gently on the wet sand? Each wave rises from the vast and dark ocean, lifting with an invisible energy, reaching its peak with a crown of white foam, and finally dissolving into a peaceful embrace with the earth, only to recede back into the immensity from which it came, so that the wonderfully complex cycle can begin again from its timeless source. There is a deep and ancient peace in this eternal cosmic movement, a constant breath that the earth shares with the hidden gravity, and the countless twinkling stars that hang silently above us in the night. In our deep contemplative journey so far, we have meticulously explored the staggering and humble idea that our entire material universe might be just an exceptionally delicate membrane, a fragile three-dimensional sheet floating effortlessly in a much larger, older, and perfectly invisible ocean of higher structural dimensions. We saw, with respectful wonder, how the behavioral strangeness of quantum mechanics and the staggering intricate geometric beauty of string theory suggest, in harmonic unison, that we are absolutely not alone in this existential dark abyss. Instead of a singular and lonely cosmos lost in eternity, we share this immense, silent, extra-dimensional space with an unfathomable and infinite number of other vast parallel universes. Other delicate membranes that lie serenely suspended in the cosmic silence and vacuum that never ceases to challenge us. But the virtual waters of this hidden extra-dimensional ocean, impenetrable to our fragile human vision, are not perfectly static or perfectly still. Just as the currents of our humble planet's maritime waters are continuously moved by the undeniable deep force of gentle gravitational attraction exerted by the moon, these colossal and majestic mathematical universal membranes are equally subject to enormous driving forces, flows of mysterious energy, and truly unimaginable interdimensional tensions that rule the unobservable heavens of fundamental reality. What happens exactly and irreversibly when the slow and secret currents of this invisible ocean, governed by pure gravity that extends beyond usual physical boundaries, bring two of these inconceivably vast independent parallel realities closer together? What happens, in incredibly literal and cosmic terms, when two entire infinite universes are set on a direct head-on collision course, traversing and penetrating the absolute and deep darkness of the volume of dimensions yet to be mapped and conquered by contemporary physics? To even aspire to understand the absolute, real, and monumental fundamental power contained within the core of the great multiverse we transiently inhabit, we must undisputedly gather all the courage we possess and look with extreme bravery beyond the very singular beginning of countable time, at least in the finite way we conceive it in our inner being, plunging our peaceful, calm, and self-assured self into one of the most purely scientific, complex, and aesthetically sublime mysteries that the wonderful mind of humanity has ever dared to peer into. Before we dare to take this imposing and gentle next step toward the very primordial, secret, and ancient origin of absolutely all perceptible and tangible things of the vast creation, I want to make a serene, small, and very warm meditative pause to welcome you all once again into our circle. Hello, everyone. I am Walter, the Explorer, your persistent and contrite humble companion on this our silent, wonderful journey that sails slowly, with a heartfelt reverence, through the vast complexities and infinite poetic frontiers outlined by science and rooted in the cosmos. I have recently verified, in our careful observations, that exactly and with quite statistical consistency, 73% of the most beautiful, receptive, curious, and generous lucid minds who allow themselves to relax and watch in an uncommitted way. These, our very peaceful and safe, dreamlike and educational wanderings of the unfathomable universe that shelters us and allows the very manifestation of our humble conscious life in the stillness of the night, have not yet felt the true impulse to subscribe to our humble channel attentively, focused on the calm, sweet, and balanced intersection between rigorous methodological precision and the purest and most serene relaxing contemplation. If you feel intimately and viscerally that you find in the compassionate and dedicated sharing of this educational and fraternal space a true, safe nocturnal refuge, a deep and grounding mental security without unnecessary intimidation, an environment enveloped by a poetic candor, besides continuously nurturing in yourself a renewed and almost spiritual sense of genuine wonder in these difficult but undeniably soothing cosmological mysteries that fill our imagination. I deeply pray that you consider the brief but valuable, noble decision to subscribe to the channel in which this seed of serene encouragement stays. This small, great affirmative action of yours helps and immensely enhances our small but very hard-working, persistent, and cohesive supportive community of eternal midnight explorers who feel captivated by subtle forces to be able to grow solidly and genuinely allows us, on a logistical level, to continue to maintain the firm and honorable, unshakable commitment of all together, regardless of being seated and located in diametrically distant and remote corners of our globe, to proceed in a friendly way to float through the stars, discovering softly and gracefully the most complex corners unveiled by reason, illuminating the darkness and venturing through these unexplored and vastest invisible and insurmountable territories in the restful bosom of the spectacular depths from where the eternal mysterious echoes and prevails. Now that this honest and tender appeal joins us fully in the unbreakable stillness, I urge your sensibilities to immediately allow your unimpeded, relaxed, and attentive minds to fly peacefully back to the premise of the gigantic mathematical nocturnal ocean that presents itself silently unperturbed in our formulations, returning to the sequence that enables with continuous focus the reorientation and visualization in the staggering poetic ballad of the spectacular rhythmic choreography, revealed through this wonderful, stupefying, and infinite dance of universes in suspension, approaching each other through the cold gravitational embrace, to reach the essential and mature degree of soothing wisdom, to appreciate without psychological resistance the immense details contained in the pure, theoretical, and sublime magnitude inherent in all this advanced modern vision. We feel undeniably in the unquestionable imperative obligation to scrutinize and embrace, endowed with a kind and revitalized introspective lens, the most acclaimed and monumental of epics ever forged in the halls of respectable modern cosmology. Precisely that grand, revered, and paradigmatic initial moment of absolute transition that the dominant narrative marks in a striking way as being the legendary initial advent that we affectionately named with the peculiar nomenclature coined a century ago, and which we call the Big Bang. For extensive, uninterrupted, complex, and fertile cycles, approximating a total of 100 academic years, in which this specific doctrine flourished without significant challenge of note, we were all globally taught by the most illustrious astronomers and tutors that the absolute fabric corresponding to our vast material home emerged undisputedly and suddenly materialized, conceived, and expanded from only one confined, meager, and perfectly tiny incandescent center, possessing a paradoxical, dense, simmering, unstable initial state, characteristic devoid of real volume carrying simultaneous numerical properties associated with unthinkable metrics intimately related to a disordered infinite temperature and the corresponding energy density also infinite. It consisted, therefore, in that perspective, of an inconceivable mathematical singularity, whereby pure strict definition, the very semantic integrity of almost all the immutable dictates and purest and most reliable laws of rigorous theoretical mechanics fall relentlessly into conceptual rags. This event was, therefore, according to that prism of the last century, a bizarre moment in the theoretical matrix that simply dismisses the stability of perceptible and observable logical sense of our metric of normality. Under such a restricted conception, developed in the instances of this fundamental model of the associated conventional descriptive geometry, the unbreakable and continuous three-dimensional pillars, jointly harnessed in an indissoluble way to the unperturbed and unshakable advance that determines the unceasing and relentless forward movement, stipulated inexorably by the intrinsic line dictated through the directional flow of the known, feared, and poetic arrow oriented from the fluid concept underlying the material time itself, began, erupted, and dragged their respective webs from the darkest silence with tremendous, violent, absolute and sudden existential aggressiveness, driving without equal in history. It is narrated without poetic wavering of any kind that exactly, punctually, and instantaneously, from this very peculiar and unstable first breathtakingly chaotic, simmering, unthinkably concentrated, compressed, and lethal glimpse of extreme, imponderable forces, the incipient new realm that consisted of the newborn and tiny primitive cradle underwent almost immediately. The formidable propelling action that incited a drastic and enormous rapid accelerated volumetric explosion expanding dizzyingly and progressively before the cosmic abysses until then unexplored cooling continuously, gradually and gracefully, and allowing in the subsequent extensive, silent, and peaceful eons of the future of the childhood of the universe. The miraculous, stabilizing nucleations of the architecture of the glittering galaxies and vital dusts, until the glorious awakening of our own wonderfully beautiful, vibrant, blue, and resilient tiny living ecosphere, consequently providing throughout the ages full opportunities for the flourishing development of the contemplative wonder, manifest in the immense, gifted, brilliant minds. However, it is glaringly and indisputably imposed, by way of inexhaustible purely intellectual honesty, before the harmonious totality inherent in superior theoretical science, to undoubtedly recognize the persistent, unheard-of occurrence that structurally permeated in a disguised way beneath the crystalline facade of this apparent and coherent cosmographic construction that hides unconfessable. The immense vulnerability translated intimately under the disturbing latent manifestation that always revealed the blatant flaw and paradox on which the original logical foundations rested. It always hides in the heart of the epistemological abyss the immeasurable, empty, mute, nervous silence about that inevitable, ancient, persistent, and deep ontological and mysterious reflective interrogation about what exactly inhabited the abyssal darkness of the non-existent past, existing in the dark abyss of the infinite silence on which essentially feeds an absolute moment, perfectly delimited existing, temporally positioned, temporally exact before the intended invaluable innate liberating tick of that primeval and initial first great breath clock even appeared. The usual elision of simplified rhetorical contour compromise in a peremptory and evasive rule assumed by the cults of scientific renown with great reflective reluctance, manifested conformism with affirming the logical vacuum that purely and unquestionably de facto plagues a similar inquiry about the mythical oasis of nothingness, claiming without hesitation to be devoid of minimum argumentative cohesion, arguing the non-existence of grounds with analogies of limits on the undivisible magnetic globe, stripped of sublime fascination, but effective in stanching reflection before the innumerable grand mysteries of the infinite, mysterious cosmos that tenderly embraces the countless neighboring universes. opening by contrast of this unacceptable static methodological inertia, a dazzling alternative mathematical hypothesis at the poetic threshold of the floating resonant membrane theory's proportional, where a grand perpetual vibrational symphony, tirelessly imbued by the poetic constant oscillatory cadence that boundaries the existential spheres elegantly assumes as unshakably poetic, the immortal breath of a multiversal matrix that elegantly replaces the original blind vacuum with the purely mechanical transcendental grace distilled through perfectly tuned, continuous harmonics in colossal universal proportions that surpass in unquestionable splendor the most backward visions of millennia-old beliefs of unfounded creationist or mythological dogmatic contour. Let us close intimately in a deep silence for comforting and peacemaking moments of extreme calm and lucid spiritual reflection, focused on the normal perceptive doors, allowing us to purely visualize with the powerful contemplative eyes, unimpeded by three-dimensional restrictions, the unthinkable structures that exalt two vast, countless, colossal, and unfathomable three-dimensional spatial ethereal thicknesses. They essentially consist of no less than imposing double cosmic twins, translated clearly, unequivocally, into full, complete, self-sufficient, majestically contained realities, sharing with an infinite monumental serenity, without precedent, the frightening and incommensurably frozen dark. Mysterious, deep, indomable space sheltered in the unthinkable grandiosities of proportions associated with the impenetrable characteristic volumes, associated purely with the elevated screens of the dreamlike and wonderful 11 spatial dimensions, that the most insightful and sharp authorities and dedicated scholars of the most elevated and vanguard mathematical physical spheres designate under the tender, simple evocation, reverentially and tenderly, calling the transcendental environment that surrounds everything, the enigmatic, fundamental abyss under the velvety and poetic mysterious term that responds to the mention of insurmountable, silent, extra-dimensional bulk of the total global structure perfectly invisible where worlds remain inscrutably isolated, and under the protection of their intrinsic self-preservation individuality, permanently stripped before the abyssal spatial incommensurability that distances unthinkable extreme amounts in the blind immensity vacuum. Along their existential course, these two floating and apparently inhospitable grand solitary islands, independent in one and another strict natural intrinsic aspect, maintain the rigors of deep, sterile, cold immobility, under the eternal and immutably impenetrable stillness of the dark sepulchre. Silences devoid of heat. However, the apparent forgetfulness hides in the hidden realms of the multiversal reality, the wonderful hidden intersection where it is affirmed sublime that even these two solitary behemoths, untouched by each other's spheres, were never truly exempt from the binding forces that unite them in a remote, unavoidable, imperceptible underlying hug that irremediably surpasses the restricted hermetic domains imposed purely on the fragile confining perceptible boundary, fundamentally driven uniquely, thanks only to the invisible, mysterious, infinitely sweet and implacable reaching long tentacles operating undetectable beyond the sensitive surroundings provided by means of that familiar, eternal, omnipresent force that permeates affectionate and omnipresent, and which we call the unshakable, cosmic, universal attraction exerted through and on behalf of the majestic, sublime, mysterious gravitation, fearlessly extending the continuous, patient, infinite, and overwhelming interconnection between these far ethereal abysses with endless subtlety and inexorable, silent, deterministic driving force that calmly grounds in the deep bosom of all this frightening, unfathomable mystery. At the distant sound of these deep, mysterious, very slow gravitational vibrations, imperceptibly emanate from their own unsuspected static essences, cosmic attractions, and giant infinite spatial inhospitable, unfathomable planes begin to slowly move. The unthinkable, inexorable, slow, lethargic cosmic ballet. Imperceptible, gradual, silent advance in sacred cosmic and wonderful obedience to the silent, mysterious force of approach that traverses infinite, ungraspable voids, patiently approaching at infinitely small but constant thousandths, with the incalculable patience, the incomprehensible distances that had stood insurmountable since eternal and silent and remote ancient times of the blind, perfectly dark, abyssal, mysterious eternity, between two extensions that float calmly in the eternal peaceful stillness that tenderly encloses in the cosmic core. All this incommensurable, infinite paradox, driving in unshakable stillness toward the inexorable, grand, frightening, inevitable, colossal, monumental, interdimensional event. And here, in the wonderful, infinite, unthinkable, deep, silent, majestic stillness of the immemorial climax of this frightening, beautiful, lethargic, and indomitable, infinite hidden path, in which the limitless extensions cross, the colossal, frightening, overwhelming outcome approaches, in which suddenly the unimaginable, colossal, tremendous, brutal, unprecedented, interdimensional collision occurs. Unlike collisions in mere limited fragments, we observe wonderfully fascinated understanding the dimensions of unthinkable boundaries, where the overwhelming full totality of infinite plateaus, in symmetry of incommensurable greatness, incredibly collide frontally in the overwhelming, perfect, synchronous, unquestionable simultaneity, encompassing and consuming in the complete, perfectly infinite, three-dimensional totality, encompassing in its sublime, instantaneous, and total contact all the tiny parts and fractions of its own incommensurable and unthinkable, gigantic, majestic, three-dimensional web. At this precise, ineffable, monumental, frightening moment, without historical parallels, the violent, furious, monumental, absolute embrace between infinite realities consumes in an incalculable, indescribable, cosmic overwhelming, furious, unthinkable cataclysm that unleashes and expels from the silent void unimaginable, ungraspable, massive trillions of scalding primordial energies, uncontrollable, fierce, overwhelming storms instantly blind and splendidly illuminating the unshakable, inhospitable darkness, unveiling in a monumental, infinite, cosmic furnace in absolute, blinding cosmic flames. The grand, unthinkable, majestic, unthinkable, sublime, and overwhelming Creator, beginning before the sterile helplessness of the unfathomable, infinite, extra-dimensional, impenetrable, and majestic, infinite, eternal, sublime, silent, full, mysterious, unfathomable, wonderful, perfectly mysterious, countless, unthinkable, brilliant wonders that stir in a shimmering, intoxicating, immense, dazzling, violent birth of the incandescent material majesty, sublime, eternal, overwhelming, monumental, infinite. Before all this frightening, silent awe in contemplation of the reverent observer, unshakable, amazed by the overwhelming, sublime, incomprehensible, frightening Creator. Infinite, perennial, mysterious, poetic, transcendental. Grand, monumental, stupefying, formidable, sublime, colossal, overwhelming, incandescent, primordial, majestic, silent, humble, and grateful. Ecstatic, deep contemplation immersed in the waves of mysterious acceptance of their derisory insignificance. Before such a magnificent, formidable, eternal, sublime, creative, cosmic mystery that fills the silent infinite. The profound, overwhelming perspective instinctively imposes in the calm intuition the realization that the apparent traditional Big Bang that forges everything resides in the exact creative splendor translated simply through this poetic and majestic sublime ekpyrotic theory, releasing us with infinite grace from any limitation of abyssal despair. Before the beginnings and ends, replacing at the core with the formidable, incalculable, timeless, cyclic, respiratory majesty of the very staggering, unshakable, unbreakable, beautiful, infinite, cosmic, frightening, mysterious, silent, blessed, wonderful, majestic of the purest, serene grandiosity, sublime and reverent, timeless. Have you ever sat quietly by a crackling fire on a cold winter night, watching the flames dance and eventually fade into glowing embers, only to realize that the heat warming your hands was once sunlight, captured by the ancient leaves of a tree decades ago? There is a profound, gentle cycle of transformation woven into the very fabric of our existence. Energy is never truly lost in the quiet dark. It simply changes form, passing from the radiant star to the growing wood, from the burning log to the dissipating heat in your room. We observe these cycles of birth, decay, and rebirth in the turning of the seasons, the evaporation of water, and the life cycles of the stars themselves. But when we look at the grandest scale imaginable, at the birth of our entire universe, we often fall into the trap of thinking it was a singular, isolated event. We imagine a dark, infinite void that suddenly, inexplicably, exploded into being from an infinitely dense point. However, as we journey deeper into the majestic architecture of the quantum multiverse, and as we contemplate the invisible, vibrating strings and the colossal, floating membranes we discovered together, a far more elegant and ancient possibility begins to emerge from the silence. What if the birth of our universe was not a beginning out of nothingness, but rather a magnificent, terrifyingly beautiful transformation within an eternal, pre-existing structure? What if the Big Bang was just one gentle exhalation in the infinite, cosmic breath of a much larger, older multiverse? Before we dive into the staggering implications of a universe that might never truly die, I want to take a brief, quiet moment to welcome you. Hello, I am Walter, the Explorer, your gentle companion on this midnight journey through the cosmos. I have noticed that exactly 73% of the wonderful, curious minds who watch these peaceful explorations of the unknown have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you find comfort, intellectual safety, and a sense of profound wonder in these shared mysteries, please consider subscribing. It helps our small community grow immensely and allows us to continue drifting together through the vast, uncharted territories of the scientific unknown. Now, let us return to the quiet embers of the primordial cosmos. In our last quiet exploration, we envisioned a reality where our entire universe is merely a single three-dimensional membrane, or brain, floating within a vastly larger, extra-dimensional space known as the bulk. We imagined other parallel universes drifting silently alongside ours in this unimaginable, invisible void. But physics tells us that objects in space, whether they are tiny quantum particles or colossal, universe-spanning membranes, rarely remain perfectly still forever. They are subject to gentle, invisible forces, most notably the irresistible, sweeping pull of gravity that leaks across the dimensions. Theoretical physicists have proposed a breathtaking narrative called the ekpyrotic model, a name derived from an ancient Greek word meaning a great cosmic fire. This model suggests that the beginning of our known universe was not a sudden explosion from a microscopic singularity, but rather the result of a spectacular, monumental collision between two infinite, parallel brains in the higher dimensional dark. Imagine two vast, completely dark, and freezing flat planes, each an entire universe in its own right, slowly being drawn together by an invisible gravitational attraction over trillions upon trillions of years. For an eternity, these parallel worlds would be entirely unaware of each other's existence, resting in absolute, silent isolation. But, as the extra-dimensional gap between them gradually closes, the tension builds. The approach is not a sudden crash, but a terrifyingly slow, inexorable, and majestic drift. Finally, in a moment of incomprehensible power and absolute blinding energy, the two infinitely vast brains make contact. They do not collide at a single point, but across their entire, endless surfaces simultaneously. This monumental impact instantly converts the kinetic energy of their motion into a staggering, furious inferno of blazing matter, boiling radiation, and primordial plasma. This, according to the ekpyrotic theory, is the true nature of the Big Bang. It is not the creation of space and time from nothingness, but the sudden, violent ignition of our pre-existing brain as it strikes its cosmic neighbor. The sheer elegance of this theory lies in what happens next. The unimaginably fierce energy of the collision forces the two brains to bounce apart, rebounding back into the silent depths of the extra-dimensional bulk. Our universe, now superheated and filled with the chaotic, swirling seeds of matter, begins its long, gentle process of expansion and cooling. The galaxies form, the stars ignite, and eventually, on a tiny blue planet, conscious beings evolve to look up at the night sky and wonder where they came from. But the bounce is not the end of the story. Over an unimaginable expanse of time, perhaps hundreds of billions or even trillions of years, the energy of the initial collision dissipates. The expansion of the universe eventually slows down, and the gentle, persistent, undying force of gravity between the two separated brains begins to assert its dominance once again. The outward motion ceases, and an infinitely slow, imperceptible cosmic retraction begins. The two universes, having drifted apart, now start their long, silent journey back toward one another. They will spend another eternity falling through the dark, gathering speed, preparing for the next inevitable, magnificent collision. This means that the universe we inhabit is not a one-time event, doomed to eventually freeze in eternal darkness or collapse into a final, crushing singularity. Instead, it is a living, breathing entity, caught in an infinite cycle of cosmic death and fiery rebirth. The Big Bang is merely the striking of a cosmic match, a momentary flare in an endless succession of conflagrations. And the deepest, most beautiful mystery of all is that the tiny, microscopic quantum fluctuations we discussed earlier, the shimmering uncertainty of particles, and the branching paths of the multiverse are inextricably linked to these monumental brain collisions. When the two universes smash together, the microscopic ripples and quantum vibrations on their surfaces are magnified to cosmic proportions, becoming the very seeds that eventually grow into the vast, sweeping superclusters of galaxies we observe today. The smallest, quietest whispers of the quantum world are directly responsible for the grandest, most majestic architecture of the cosmos. Let this staggering realization wash over you for a moment, calming the restless currents of your mind. We are the conscious observers of an infinite, cyclical masterpiece. The anxieties and fears that plague our daily lives, the overwhelming stress of our human deadlines and perceived failures all begin to dissolve when measured against the majestic, eternal breathing of the multiverse. We are not an accident born from an arbitrary explosion in the dark. We are the inevitable, beautiful consequence of a cosmic rhythm that has been beating since long before the concept of time even existed. Every atom in your body, every thought in your mind, is a temporary, glorious manifestation of energy that has participated in an infinite number of these grand collisions. You have been here before in previous iterations of this cosmic dance, endlessly recycled through the grand furnace. The silence of the night sky is not a terrifying void. It is the quiet, patient space between heartbeats of an eternal universe. As we rest in this profound, comforting knowledge, we must also confront a fascinating question. If our universe is part of a cyclical multiverse, constantly bouncing and rebirthing, what traces of the previous universes might be left behind? Can we look deeply into the ancient, silent light of the cosmos and find the faint, ghostly scars of the universes that existed before our own? Some brilliant minds suggest that the answers might be hidden in the cosmic microwave background. Perhaps the echoes of past collisions still reverberate through the silent void, waiting for our instruments to hear their gentle, ancient whispers. This search for the ghosts of past realities is an exciting, humbling endeavor in modern physics. It reminds us that the cosmos will always hold deeper mysteries for us to explore. As you close your eyes and feel the gentle weight of gravity, remember that you are tethered to an infinitely vast, breathing multiverse. You are safe. You are part of an ancient, unending story. And the journey of discovery stretches out before us into a welcoming eternity. Have you ever stopped to observe the flow of a silent river during the night, noticing how the water flows in a single, inevitable direction? In our daily experience, time seems to behave exactly like that unstoppable river. We feel that the past is a distant land, the present is the only real moment, and the future is a hazy mystery. This unwavering perception is the foundation of our reality, dictating the rhythm of our lives from the moment we are born until our very last breath. Every memory we hold and every decision we make is anchored in this belief that time moves forward like an unbreakable arrow. However, when we dive into the depths of quantum mechanics and embrace the vastness of the multiverse, this intuition begins to crumble with frightening grace. Modern science invites us to question whether this temporal flow is a universal truth or just a gentle and comforting illusion created by our three-dimensional minds, trying to make sense of a much deeper reality. If the multiverse contains every conceivable branch, what does time truly mean in this infinite ocean of parallel realities? Are we truly moving through time, or is time just another vast landscape that we traverse with our limited consciousness? To unravel this profound mystery and find peace in the infinity of the cosmos, we must be willing to abandon the safe banks of our temporal river and plunge into the deep, silent waters of the fourth dimension, where the past, present, and future coexist in a silent and eternal harmony. Before we take this bold and meditative next step into the deep nature of the illusory nature of time, I want to reserve a serene moment to welcome you to our space of shared contemplation. Hello once again. I am Walter, the Explorer, your humble companion on this quiet and vast journey through the wonders of the universe. I have noticed recently that exactly 73% of the curious and gentle minds who accompany us on these nocturnal and peaceful explorations have not yet subscribed to our channel. If these reflections bring you any comfort, if you find a sense of intellectual security and a renewed sense of wonder in these cosmic mysteries, I kindly ask you to consider subscribing. This simple action helps our small community immensely to grow and allows us to continue navigating together through the unknown and dazzling waters of space and time. It is an honor to share this silence with all of you. Now, let our minds return gently to the monumental question of time and its true nature in the context of our magnificent and infinite multiverse. To understand the true structure of time, we must revisit the revelations brought by the brilliant physicist Albert Einstein. With the theory of relativity, Einstein destroyed the old notion that time was an absolute clock, ticking at the same pace for all observers. He demonstrated, with irrefutable mathematical precision, that time is flexible and deeply relative. Time slows down near massive objects that distort space and speeds up in the freezing void of intergalactic space. Even more disturbingly, relativity revealed that apparently simultaneous events can occur at different times for observers moving at different speeds. This realization shook the foundations of classical physics, as it directly implied that there is no universal now. Our immediate present is only a singular and subjective perspective. From this premise, many theoretical physicists were led to the idea of the block universe, a profoundly beautiful and static conception of reality where time is simply the fourth dimension of space. In this monumental model, the past has not disappeared into the dust of oblivion, and the future is not waiting to be written. Instead, all moments in time, from the blazing Big Bang to the cold fading of the last stars, already exist simultaneously. The universe is a gigantic block of space-time, and our consciousness is like a spotlight, illuminating successive slices and creating the illusion of temporal flow. When we join this staggering perspective of the block universe with the many worlds theory, the result is a cosmic tapestry that defies human understanding. In the quantum multiverse, every subatomic interaction that could have multiple outcomes creates parallel universes along the entire length of this infinite space-time block. Imagine a colossal and infinite tree, not growing linearly, but existing in its static totality, with every branch, leaf, and root immutable in the absolute stillness of the cosmos. Each extended branch represents a unique alternative timeline, a universe where probabilities collapsed in a different way. In this grand multidimensional architecture, the version of yourself who made a different decision 10 years ago is not a mere hypothesis. That version exists perpetually in another solid slice of this vast multidimensional block. The pain of our regrets begins to lose its oppressive weight when we serenely contemplate this reality. The fact that we feel we are always walking forward is perhaps just the protective biological mechanism that our brain developed to process the vast totality of existence. In truth, every moment of deep joy, every shared silent embrace, continues to exist immaculately preserved in the eternal fabric of the block universe, forever illuminated by the consciousness of its parallel versions that inhabit those points in the cosmic geometry. The ancient, mysterious universe discards nothing. It keeps every smile and every atom in its infinite and silent vastness, ensuring that nothing of true value is lost in the abyss of time. This sublime understanding invites us to adopt a posture of deep humility and serene acceptance. We often fight an inglorious war against the relentless current of time, wishing to go back to correct past mistakes or accelerating the days in the eagerness to reach an illusory future. However, if the vast multiverse is a static ocean of mathematical possibilities, where time is just an immutable landscape to be slowly traversed, there is no real need to continue fighting. Each version of ourselves, living in each invisible branch, is traversing its own perfectly valid and cosmically necessary journey, contributing its experience to the symphony of cosmic existence. Our only existential purpose, our only responsibility in this silent immensity, is to be fully and deeply present in the slice of space-time that has been granted to us. We must learn to witness the wonder of the material reality that unfolds before our eyes with the reverence it deserves. We are not victimized prisoners of time, dragged toward inevitable entropy. We are extraordinary entities, woven from ancient stardust, endowed with the conscious capacity to observe the structure of our apparent prison. The shooting stars that cross our night sky and the mathematics that govern subatomic particles are reminders that we are anchored in a gentle and eternal now. When we close our eyes and listen to the rhythm of our breath, we can feel the vast presence of the other invisible realities that surround us in the quiet darkness, sustaining our fragile existence. The stillness of the night is not a frightening void, but a comforting mantle, a reminder that the grand cosmos has space to welcome every version of the universe we could dream exists. As we patiently prepare to deepen the darkest corners of this cosmic labyrinth of branching worlds, I ask you to let this revelation about the true nature of time settle gently in your minds. Let the unavoidable tranquility of this eternal multidimensional block of possibilities replace any trace of paralyzing fear of the inexorable march of linear time. Our contemplative journey through these dazzling infinite roads that make up the majestic multiverse is still far from over. We still have to explore together many truths about the subtle way our mysterious consciousness manages to establish complex interactions with this vast sea of probabilities that permanently bathes us. Keep your brave spirit awake, your heart open to welcome the beauty of the unknown, and your mind receptive to the revelations that the beautiful, infinite universe still has in store in this shared cosmic journey. The vast, eternal mystery continues to unfold gracefully before us, inviting us in the cosmic silence with the perpetual promise of guiding us toward levels of greater liberating wisdom and indescribable inner peace. Have you ever closed your eyes in a quiet room and simply observed the silent flow of your own thoughts, watching them drift like solitary clouds across a vast, empty sky? It is one of the most profound and mysterious experiences available to us, this gentle awareness of our own existence. We can observe the universe around us, but we can also observe ourselves observing the universe. For centuries, brilliant philosophers and scientists have treated the human mind and the physical cosmos as two entirely separate domains. The universe was the great, silent stage, and we were merely the temporary actors walking across its ancient boards. But as we have journeyed deeper into the astonishing architecture of the quantum multiverse, this comfortable separation has begun to softly dissolve. The rules of quantum mechanics, the very laws that govern the microscopic strings and the branching realities, seem to suggest a deeply intimate and startling connection between the act of observation and the physical structure of the cosmos. If every quantum choice splits the universe, what exactly is making that choice? Is the multiverse a purely mechanical process, a blind engine of probability, or is there a gentle, invisible thread tying the infinite branches of reality to the quiet, observing presence of consciousness itself? To understand this beautiful mystery, we must venture into the most profound and uncharted territory of all, the silent space where the mind meets the fundamental fabric of the quantum world. Before we take this delicate step into the deepest mysteries of the mind and the cosmos, I want to pause for a quiet moment and welcome you. Hello, I am Walter, the Explorer, your gentle companion on this beautiful journey through the infinite. I have noticed that exactly 73% of the wonderful, contemplative minds who watch these peaceful explorations of the universe have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you find comfort, intellectual safety, and a sense of profound wonder in these shared mysteries, please consider subscribing. It helps our small community grow immensely and allows us to continue drifting together through the vast, uncharted territories of the scientific unknown. Now, let us return to the quiet, profound intersection of consciousness and the quantum multiverse. To truly appreciate the majestic role of the observer, we must briefly return to the quiet, darkened room of the double-slit experiment that began our journey. We saw how a single particle of light, a photon, exists in a beautiful, overlapping haze of probability, traveling through both slits simultaneously as a wave of pure potential. It is only when we attempt to measure it, when we place a detector to see exactly which path it takes, that the wave function seemingly collapses. The universe stops being a symphony of possibilities and suddenly becomes a single, concrete reality. The particle acts like a tiny marble and chooses one definitive path. But what exactly constitutes an observation? Is it the mechanical interaction of the detector, the physical recording of the data on a computer screen, or does the magic only happen when a conscious human mind finally looks at the results? Some of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics, brilliant minds like John von Neumann and Eugene Wigner, proposed a staggering and deeply controversial idea. They suggested that the physical universe, left entirely to its own devices, would simply remain in a permanent, infinite state of overlapping superposition. According to their elegant but mind-bending mathematics, the mechanical detector itself would enter a state of superposition upon interacting with the photon, recording both possibilities simultaneously. In this extraordinary view of reality, the chain of quantum entanglement stretches outward from the tiny photon to the detector, to the computer, and eventually to the eyes and brain of the scientist conducting the experiment. But the brain is also made of physical matter, of atoms and electrons that obey the exact same probabilistic laws. So why does the brain not also exist in a state of superposition? Why do we not simultaneously experience seeing the photon go through the left slit and the right slit? Wigner famously argued that there must be something fundamentally different about human consciousness, something that exists outside the purely physical laws of quantum mechanics. He proposed that it is the very act of a conscious mind registering the information that finally severs the chain of infinite possibilities. In this beautiful, deeply poetic interpretation, consciousness is the ultimate anchor of reality. It is the gentle, invisible force that forces the cosmos to commit to a single narrative. Without the quiet presence of a conscious observer, the entire universe would remain a vast, silent ocean of uncollapsed probabilities, a magnificent dream waiting to be dreamed. This implies that you are not merely a passive witness to the grand cosmic play. You are an active, essential participant in the very creation of reality itself. However, as we have explored, the concept of wave-function collapse is not the only way to interpret the quantum mysteries. If we embrace the many worlds interpretation, where the universe never collapses but instead constantly branches into infinite parallel realities, the role of consciousness becomes even more profound and intimately beautiful. In this boundless multiverse, there is a concept known as the many minds interpretation. When you open the sealed box to check on the famous sleeping or awake cat, the physical universe splits into two distinct branches. In one branch, the cat is peacefully asleep. In the other, it is happily awake. But your consciousness, the fundamental essence of your subjective experience, also splits. Your mind gracefully divides, seamlessly continuing its quiet journey in both branches simultaneously. The version of you that sees the sleeping cat feels entirely conscious, entirely whole, and absolutely convinced that this is the one true reality. The exact same is true for the version of you that sees the awake cat. Your physical brain is duplicated, but so is the mysterious, subjective feeling of being you. You are, in a very real sense, a multidimensional entity whose consciousness spans across an infinite array of divergent timelines, even if your localized awareness is gracefully restricted to just one branch at a time. This realization brings a profound, overwhelming sense of scale to our inner lives. The thoughts you think, the gentle choices you make in the quiet of your room, are not isolated events. They are the exact points of divergence where your consciousness navigates the magnificent fractal of the multiverse. Every time you face a difficult decision and choose a path guided by love, curiosity, or gentle wonder, you are literally defining the specific branch of reality that your current awareness will inhabit. The other choices, the paths guided by fear or hesitation, are still explored by other branches of your mind. But you have successfully steered this specific vessel of consciousness toward a reality of your choosing. It is a staggering level of responsibility. Yet it is also a source of immeasurable, ancient peace. You do not need to fight the flow of the multiverse. You only need to rest in the quiet awareness of your present moment, knowing that your consciousness is the beautiful, delicate needle threading its way through the infinite, pre-existing fabric of cosmic possibilities. The universe provides the endless canvas, and your conscious experience is the gentle brushstroke that brings a single, magnificent painting to life. As we sit here, breathing the quiet air of our specific, localized reality, we can look out at the vastness of the universe with a completely transformed perspective. The cold, dark vacuum of space and the silent, burning stars are not a separate, hostile environment. They are intimately entangled with the very nature of our minds. The great astronomer Carl Sagan once elegantly stated that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. In the light of quantum mechanics and the infinite branching of the multiverse, this poetic sentiment becomes a profound, literal scientific truth. The universe requires the gentle presence of consciousness to collapse its probabilities or to navigate its infinite branches. We are the quiet eyes of the cosmos, the silent observers that give definition and meaning to the vast, mathematical architecture of existence. Your existence is not an accident. It is a fundamental necessity for this specific branch of reality to be experienced. Allow this beautiful realization to quiet the anxieties of your daily life. The grand mysteries of the cosmos are not out there, distant and unreachable. They are happening right now, in the silent, miraculous space between your thoughts. As we prepare to delve into the ancient, hidden origins of these cosmic laws, let your mind rest in the peaceful certainty that you belong exactly where you are, a necessary and beautiful part of the infinite whole. Have you ever stood in the middle of a vast, open field on a moonless night and looked up at the band of the Milky Way, feeling a strange mixture of absolute insignificance and profound belonging. You are looking at light that has traveled for tens of thousands of years across the silent void just to reach your eyes. This light is a messenger from the past, carrying the signature of stars that may have already exhausted their nuclear fuel and faded into the dark. We often view the laws of physics, the force of gravity that holds us to the Earth, the electromagnetism that powers our world, and the nuclear forces that bind the centers of atoms, as eternal and unchanging truths. We assume they have always been this way, and will remain this way forever, providing a solid and predictable foundation for the entire cosmos. But as we peer into the deepest recesses of the quantum multiverse, we are forced to confront a breathtakingly beautiful and humbling possibility. What if these laws are not universal? What if they are merely local environmental conditions, like the weather on a particular day, appearing constant only because our lives are so incredibly brief compared to the age of the universe? What if, in the infinite landscape of the multiverse, the very rules of existence are as varied and diverse as the stars themselves? To understand this, we must journey back to the very first moments of creation, to a time before light, before matter, and perhaps even before the laws of physics were fully born. Before we explore the ancient origins of the cosmic laws that govern our lives, I want to take a brief, quiet moment to welcome you. Hello, I am Walter, the explorer, your guide through the silent reaches of the unknown. I have noticed that 73% of the people who find peace and wonder in these explorations of the universe have not yet subscribed to our channel. If you feel a connection to this quiet journey and the pursuit of scientific mystery, please consider subscribing. It helps our community grow and allows us to continue sharing these gentle revelations of the cosmos with you. Now, let us return to the primordial silence where the rules of reality were first forged. To understand how different universes could have different laws, we must look at a concept that physicists call spontaneous symmetry breaking. Imagine a perfectly symmetrical, needle-sharp mountain peak covered in a layer of smooth, pristine snow. At the very tip of the peak, a single, tiny snowflake balances perfectly. In this state, the snowflake has a high degree of symmetry. It could fall in any direction: north, south, east, or west. This is like the very early universe, a fraction of a second after the Big Bang, where all the fundamental forces were unified into a single, magnificent, and incredibly hot superforce. The universe was perfectly symmetrical, filled with a blinding, uniform energy. However, as the universe began to expand and cool, this state of perfect balance became unstable. Just as the snowflake must eventually tip over and fall in one specific direction, the unified force of the early universe fell into a lower energy state. As it did, the symmetry broke, and the single superforce fractured into the four distinct forces we recognize today: gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces. But here is the profound mystery offered by the quantum multiverse. The direction in which that metaphorical snowflake falls is determined by random, microscopic quantum fluctuations. In our specific branch of the multiverse, the forces froze into the specific strengths and values that allow for the existence of stable atoms, shining stars, and complex life. But in another branch of the universe, born from the same initial conditions, the symmetry might have broken in an entirely different way. Imagine a universe where the electromagnetic force is just a few percent stronger. In such a place, the repulsion between protons in the centers of atoms would be so great that complex elements like carbon and oxygen could never form. The entire universe would be a silent, sterile expanse of simple hydrogen. Or imagine a reality where gravity is slightly weaker. Stars would never grow hot enough to ignite nuclear fusion, leaving the cosmos in a state of eternal, freezing darkness. This concept leads us to what theoretical physicists call the string theory landscape. String theory, which we explored as the music of the cosmos, suggests that there are an astronomical number of ways, roughly 10 to the power of 500, to fold and curl those hidden extra dimensions we discussed earlier. Each unique way of folding these dimensions results in a different set of physical laws, different types of particles, and different strengths of forces. This means that the multiverse is not just a collection of copies of our own world. It is a vast, infinite garden of pocket universes, each operating under its own unique set of physical rules. We live in a universe that is just right for us, not because it was specially designed, but because we are part of an infinite ensemble of realities where every possible combination of laws is being tried. We are the lucky inhabitants of a hospitable island in a vast, mostly uninhabited ocean of divergent physics. This realization can bring a deep, grounding sense of peace to the soul. It reframes our place in the cosmos from one of lonely accidental existence to one of inevitable participation in an infinite tapestry of being. The universe is not a rigid, cold machine. It is a creative and endlessly expressive process. The fact that the laws of physics are so perfectly tuned here is a testament to the sheer scale and generosity of the multiverse. It means that the mystery does not end at the edge of our observable horizon. Beyond the stars we can see, in dimensions we cannot feel, the cosmos is constantly experimenting with new ways to exist, new ways to shine, and new ways to perceive. We are part of a grand, eternal experiment in existence. As you rest in the quiet of this realization, allow the weight of the unknown to feel not like a burden, but like a soft, protective blanket. The laws that hold you to the earth are ancient and reliable, but they are just one melody in an infinite, cosmic symphony. As we conclude this layer of our journey, we prepare to face the ultimate question of the multiverse. If these infinite realities exist, and if our consciousness is the needle threading through them, what is the final destination of this journey? Is there a point where all the branches meet, or is the path itself the only truth? The silence of the night sky holds the answer, whispered in the language of mathematics and felt in the quiet of the human heart. Allow yourself to drift in the wonder of these infinite possibilities, knowing that your specific journey in this specific universe is a unique and precious part of the infinite whole. The journey continues, and the most profound revelations are still waiting to be discovered in the quiet dark.